Members of the jury, I know that you have a complete understanding of the issues here, but I think it well to call your attention to the fact that the main case is in fraud. It is not like a suit on a promissory note, or a suit for salary, or a suit for goods sold and delivered. It is a suit for fraud and deceit. That means getting somebody's money away from them by fraud. It is a good deal like the crime of getting money by false pretenses, and the law requires strict proof. The burden of proof upon the plaintiffs in this case is to prove that they were induced to pay to the defendants $30,000 through representatives made by the defendants, which the defendants knew to be false, made them to the plaintiffs for the purpose of inducing them to part with their money, that the plaintiffs did not know of the falsity of the representations, but believed them, relied upon them, and were damaged to the extent of parting with that $30,000. The plaintiffs are here asking us to give them the money of the defendants. The law does not permit money to be taken from one and handed to another except upon reasonably certain proof. The burden of proof is upon the plaintiffs to prove the propositions that I have laid down to you that constitute the fraud that they charge here. They are not obliged to prove their case with absolute certainty, but they are obliged to prove it with reasonable certainty. It is not every controversy that arises among citizens that the law takes hold of and attempts to settle. If a case is so uncertain that you cannot make up your minds without guessing, the law says, we will not touch it. The verdict will be for the defendant. We will leave the parties in the same condition in which their own acts have placed them. The law will interfere and take money from one and hand it to another only when the proof in favor of the one demanding the money fairly outweighs in point of credibility and probability, when viewed in the light of your common sense and practical experience, the testimony on the other side. In other words, you must be reasonably certain that you are right before you can take money out of one man's pocket and put it into another's. If the case is so uncertain that you cannot make up your minds without guessing, your verdict will be for the defendant. You must not guess one man's money into the pockets of another. I am going to leave this case to your good old common sense. That is what I want from you. I want you to employ the processes of reasoning that you use in your everyday life to safeguard yourselves in your business and other transactions. You are used to judging men. If you were not able to guard yourselves against those who come along and tell you lies, you would soon come to shipwreck in your business and all your other affairs. You have seen these witnesses here. You know what their interest in the controversy is. Do not forget their interest. The plaintiffs are interested. They are trying to get this money. The defendants are interested. They are trying to keep the plaintiffs from getting it. I do not mean to say that because a witness is interested on that account alone, you should disbelieve his or her testimony, because a man may be so honest he will tell the truth no matter how much he may be interested. Nevertheless, it is a circumstance you should keep in mind in weighing the testimony of any witness to see whether or not his or her interest in the case may not have influenced his or her testimony. In other words, use your good old common sense and your best judgment and think out where the truth lies in all human probability. That is what we are after. Were these plaintiffs induced by fraud to pay out this $30,000? They signed the contract. There it is. They refused to go on with the contract, and now they demand back the money they paid as a deposit to ensure the carrying out of the contract on the ground by fraud and deceit. They were induced to enter into the contract. They signed the contract. There are their signatures. Was it an afterthought, to use a term from the streets? Was it merely welching on the contract they made? Of course, I do not want you to understand me as suggesting that I do not want to influence your minds one way or the other. Nevertheless, that is the contention of the defendants here. You will have in mind all the circumstances surrounding the case. Little things sometimes shed a ray of light. Just consider the transaction, how it occurred according to the testimony, all the way down from the time the first word came in. Mr. Haynes said the defendants had a garage for lease, and all the transactions had all the way down the line. Just go over it in your mind.